Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the UES Valiant. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he moved between the control stations. The ship had been traveling through space for 6 months, and today they would finally reach their destination. The Kepler 442 system was far from Earth, but it might hold the answers to many questions about life in the galaxy. "Captain, we're getting signals from the third planet," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was looking at her screen with wide eyes. "It's not just radio waves. These are actual messages. Someone is trying to talk to us." Morrison felt his heart beat faster. After so many years of searching, they had finally found intelligent life. He walked over to Amy's station and looked at the data on her screen. The signals were complex and seemed to follow patterns that suggested real intelligence. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Morrison asked. "Not yet, but Dr. Lisa Carter is working on it. She says the language has some strange similarities to old Earth languages." Amy replied. Dr. Carter was the ship's expert on alien life. She had spent years studying the possibility of life on other worlds. Now she was in her laboratory, working hard to decode the alien messages. Morrison knew that if anyone could figure out these signals, it would be her. "Captain, you need to see this," came Carter's voice over the ship's communication system. "Please come to the laboratory right away." Morrison walked quickly through the ship's corridors. The used Valiant was a big ship, but he knew every part of it. He had been the captain for 3 years, and this was the most important mission of his career. When he reached the laboratory, he found Carter staring at her computer screen with a look of shock on her face. "What did you find?" Morrison asked. "Jake, this is going to sound crazy, but I think these aliens are speaking a very old form of human language. Not just similar to it, but actually derived from it." "Look at these patterns," Carter said, pointing to her screen. Morrison looked at the data, but it was too complex for him to understand. "Are you saying these aliens learned human language somehow?" "No, that's not what I'm saying. I think these aliens might be human. Or at least they were human a very long time ago," Carter said quietly. Before Morrison could respond, Commander Ryan Brooks came into the laboratory. He was Morrison's second in command and had been monitoring the alien communications from the bridge. "Captain, they're asking for permission to send a ship to meet us. They say they want to talk face to face," Brooks said. Morrison thought about this for a moment. Meeting unknown aliens was dangerous, but it was also why they had come so far from Earth. "Tell them yes, but only one small ship, and make sure our weapons are ready, just in case." 2 hours later, a strange ship approached the UES Valiant. It was unlike any human ship Morrison had ever seen. It was smooth and silver, with no visible engines or weapons. It moved through space like it was floating on water instead of traveling through vacuum. "They're asking to come aboard," Brooks reported from the bridge. "Let them dock in Bay 3. I want security teams ready, but tell them to stay hidden unless I call for them." Morrison ordered. Morrison, Carter, and Brooks went to the docking bay to meet their visitors. When the airlock opened, 3 figures walked out. They looked human, but not quite right. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and large eyes. Their hair was silver, and they moved with a strange grace. The leader of the group stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was clear and easy to understand, though his accent was strange. "I am Kalen Voss. We have waited a long time to meet our distant cousins," he said. "Cousins?" Morrison asked. "Yes, we are the children of Earth, just as you are. But we left our homeworld long ago, when the ice covered much of the land and life was hard for all creatures," Voss explained. Carter stepped forward. "How long ago did you leave Earth?" "By your counting, approximately 500,000 years ago. We were the first humans to reach for the stars, to seek new worlds beyond." "The one that gave us birth," Voss said. Morrison felt dizzy. This was impossible. Humans had only been civilized for a few thousand years. How could these aliens claim to be from Earth so long ago? "That's impossible," Brooks said. "Humans weren't even fully evolved 500,000 years ago." Voss smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Your people were not fully evolved. We were. We had learned to use tools, to build cities, to reach beyond our world. But we were not the only humans on Earth. There were others, primitive cousins who could barely make fire. Are you saying that modern humans are descended from these primitive cousins? Carter asked. Yes, when we left Earth, we left behind the inferior stock. We took only the best of our people to the stars. What remained were the ancestors of your current species, Voss explained. Morrison was starting to understand, and he did not like what he was hearing. So you're saying that you abandoned Earth and left behind other humans? We did what was necessary. The Earth was becoming crowded and resources were limited. We chose to take our superior genetics to new worlds while leaving the lesser beings behind to struggle on the dying world, Voss said. Dying world? Carter asked. Yes, the Ice Age was not entirely natural. We may have encouraged certain climate changes to reduce competition for resources. It was a difficult decision, but a necessary one, Voss replied. Brooks stepped forward angrily. You're saying you deliberately caused an ice age to kill off other humans. Not to kill them, but to thin their numbers. We wanted to give our superior branch of humanity the best chance to survive and flourish in the galaxy, Voss said calmly. Morrison felt sick. These aliens were claiming to be descended from humans who had committed genocide against their own species. What do you want from us now? We want to see what became of the Earth we left behind. We want to understand how the inferior stock evolved over the centuries. And we want to decide what to do about the current situation, Voss said. What situation? Morrison demanded. The situation of an inferior species of human contaminating our ancestral home. Earth belongs to us, Captain Morrison. We were the first to claim it, and we never gave up our right to it. Your people are squatters on our property, Voss explained. Carter looked at Morrison with fear in her eyes. You can't be serious. Earth has been our home for all of recorded history. Your recorded history is very short. Our claim is much older and much stronger, but we are not unreasonable. We are willing to discuss terms, Voss said. Terms for what? Brooks asked. Terms for the removal of your people from Earth and the other worlds you have contaminated with your inferior genetics. We have been patient for 500,000 years, but our patience is not unlimited. Voss said. Morrison realized that they were not talking to friendly aliens who happened to be descended from humans. They were talking to enemies who considered modern humanity to be a mistake that needed to be corrected. I think this meeting is over, Morrison said firmly. The meeting is over when we say it is over, Voss replied. But we will return to our ship for now. You have 3 days to consider our offer. After that, we will begin to reclaim what is rightfully ours. The 3 aliens turned and walked back into their ship. Morrison watched them go, knowing that everything had changed. They had come looking for new friends in the galaxy, but instead, they had found their worst enemies. And these enemies claimed to be their own ancestors. Captain Jake Morrison could not sleep. It had been 2 days since the meeting with Kalen Voss and his people. The alien ship still floated near the Usa Valiant, waiting for an answer that Morrison was not ready to give. He walked through the empty corridors of his ship, thinking about everything he had learned. Dr. Lisa Carter was still in her laboratory, working day and night to understand more about these aliens who called themselves the Zephyrians. She had been running tests on the small samples they had been allowed to take during the meeting. Morrison found her staring at her computer screen, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Have you found anything new? Morrison asked. Carter looked up at him with tired eyes. Jake, it's worse than we thought. These people are definitely descended from humans, but they've changed in ways that are almost impossible to believe. She turned her screen toward him. Look at this DNA analysis. They still have human genetic markers, but they've been modified. Not through natural evolution, but through deliberate genetic engineering. They've been changing themselves for thousands of years. Morrison studied the data on the screen. What kind of changes? Extended lifespans, enhanced physical abilities, and something else that I can barely understand. They seem to have developed some kind of mental abilities that go beyond normal human intelligence, Carter explained. Mental abilities? Like what? I think they can read minds or at least sense thoughts and emotions. During our meeting, I noticed that Voss seemed to know what we were thinking before we said it, and there were times when the other two aliens seemed to be communicating without speaking, Carter said. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. So they're not just technologically advanced. They've actually evolved beyond normal humanity. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't just see us as inferior because of our technology. They see us as a completely different species, one that they consider to be contaminated and dangerous. Carter said. Commander Ryan Brooks entered the laboratory, carrying a datapad with new information. Captain, we've been analyzing the communications between their ship and other locations. They're not alone out here. What do you mean? Morrison asked. We've detected at least 12 other ships in this system, all using the same technology. And we're picking up signals that suggest they have permanent bases on several moons and asteroids. Brooks reported. Morrison felt his stomach drop. How many of them are there? We don't know exactly, but based on the communication patterns, we estimate at least 50,000 individuals in this system alone. And Captain, there's something else. They've been sending messages to other star systems. We think they're calling for reinforcements, Brooks said. Carter looked up from her computer. That's not the worst part. I've been analyzing the historical data they shared with us. Jake, these people have been watching Earth for the entire time they've been gone. Watching us? How? They've been sending ships back to our solar system for thousands of years. Small ships that could observe without being detected. They've been keeping track of human development, and they've been interfering with it, Carter said. Morrison sat down heavily in a chair. Interfering how? Do you remember the great plagues that swept through Europe in the Middle Ages? The volcanic eruptions that caused years of darkness and famine? The ice ages that nearly wiped out early human civilizations? I think the Zephyrians caused some of those disasters, Carter explained. That's impossible. They were light years away, Brooks said. No, they weren't. They had ships in our solar system. Small ones, but with advanced technology. They could have introduced diseases, triggered volcanic eruptions, even altered weather patterns. They've been trying to control human population growth for thousands of years, Carter said. Morrison stood up and began pacing around the laboratory. So they've been murdering humans for thousands of years, and now they want to finish the job. It gets worse, Carter continued. I found evidence that they've been abducting humans for genetic experiments. Those old stories about people being taken by strange beings? Some of those might have been real. They've been studying us, trying to understand how we've evolved differently from them. And what did they find? Morrison asked. That we're not inferior at all. We're different, but not inferior. In some ways, we might actually be superior to them, Carter said. Brooks looked surprised. How could we be superior? They have technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours. Because they've been changing themselves for so long, they've lost some things that we still have. Natural human creativity, emotional flexibility, the ability to adapt quickly to new situations. They've made themselves more perfect, but also more rigid, Carter explained. Morrison thought about this. So they see us as a threat, exactly. They came here expecting to find primitive animals that they could easily control or eliminate. Instead, they found a species that has spread across multiple worlds, developed its own advanced technology, and shows signs of the same potential they once had, Carter said. That's why they want to destroy us, Brooks realized. Not because we're inferior, but because we represent what they used to be before they started changing themselves. Morrison's communication device buzzed. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian ship. They want to speak with you again, came the voice of Lieutenant Amy Foster from the bridge. Put them through to the laboratory, Morrison replied. The screen in Carter's laboratory flickered, and Kalen Voss appeared. Behind him, Morrison could see the interior of the alien ship. It was beautiful but sterile, with smooth surfaces and strange lights that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. Captain Morrison, I trust you have considered our offer, Voss said. I've considered it. The answer is no, Morrison replied firmly. Voss smiled that cold smile again. I expected as much. Your species has always been stubborn and unreasonable. It is one of the flaws we eliminated from our own genetics long ago. Maybe that flaw is what makes us human, Morrison said. Perhaps, but it is also what makes you dangerous. You reproduce too quickly, consume too many resources, and spread to too many worlds. Left unchecked, you will contaminate the entire galaxy with your inferior genetics, Voss said. Carter stepped forward. Our genetics aren't inferior, they're just different from yours. Dr. Carter, is it? We have been studying your people for a very long time. We know exactly what you are capable of, and it is not impressive. You are emotional, unpredictable, and violent. You wage wars against your own species and destroy your environment. You are everything we evolved beyond, Voss. Sod, and yet we've managed to build a civilization that spans multiple star systems in just a few thousand years. How long did it take you to do the same? Morrison asked. For the first time, Voss looked slightly uncomfortable. We took a more careful approach to expansion. We did not rush recklessly into space as your people have done. You mean you were afraid to take risks? Brooks said. We were intelligent enough to avoid unnecessary dangers. Your people take foolish risks and somehow survive through luck rather than wisdom, Voss replied. Maybe that's our strength, Morrison said. We adapt, we take chances, and we find ways to survive even when the odds are against us. Your luck is about to run out, Captain. We have been patient for 500,000 years, but we will not wait any longer. Earth is our birthright, and we will reclaim it. Your people will be relocated to a world more suitable for your primitive needs, Voss said. And if we refuse? Morrison asked. Then you will be eliminated. We had hoped to show mercy to our distant cousins, but if you insist on being unreasonable, we will do what is necessary to protect the galaxy from contamination, Voss said. The transmission ended, leaving Morrison, Carter, and Brooks alone in the laboratory. They sat in silence for a long moment, each thinking about what they had just heard. They're really going to try to destroy humanity, Carter said quietly. Not if we stop them first, Morrison replied. Get me a direct line to Earth Command. We need to warn them about what's coming. What are we going to tell them? Brooks asked. The truth that our own ancestors have returned to finish what they started 500,000 years ago, and that we're going to have to fight for our right to exist. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Earth's Defense Headquarters, watching the large screen that showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked the positions of enemy ships that had been detected in the past week. There were more of them every day. How many ships do we count now? She asked her aide, Colonel Ben Parker. 47 confirmed, Admiral. But our long-range sensors keep picking up more signatures beyond the outer planets. Intelligence estimates we could be facing over 200 ships, Parker replied. Sullivan had been in charge of Earth's space defense forces for 10 years, but she had never faced anything like this. The message from Captain Morrison had arrived 3 days ago, warning them about the Zephyrians and their plans to reclaim Earth. At first, many people had thought it was some kind of mistake or joke. Now, with enemy ships appearing throughout the solar system, everyone believed, what about our own forces? Sullivan asked. We have 83 ships ready for combat, including the new battleships. But, Admiral, their technology is far beyond ours. Our weapons might not even be able to damage their ships, Parker said. Sullivan nodded grimly. She had read the reports from the U.S. Valiant. The Zephyrian ships used energy shields and weapons that human science barely understood. But giving up was not an option. Has Dr. Tony Martinez finished his analysis of the enemy technology? Sullivan asked. Yes, Admiral. He's waiting in Laboratory 7 with his team, Parker replied. Sullivan walked quickly through the corridors of the command center. The building was full of activity as military personnel prepared for what might be the final war in human history. She found Martinez hunched over a computer terminal, surrounded by other scientists and engineers. Tony, tell me you have some Good news, Sullivan said. Martinez looked up at her with tired eyes. Admiral, I've been studying the data from Captain Morrison's encounter with the Zephyrians. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has some interesting weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Their ships and weapons are based on quantum field manipulation and psychic energy control. These systems are very powerful, but they're also very precise. They work perfectly under controlled conditions, but they don't adapt well to chaos or unexpected situations, Martinez explained. Sullivan frowned. I don't understand. How does that help us? Human technology is different. We build things that are tough and simple, designed to work even when everything goes wrong. Our fusion reactors create electromagnetic pulses that interfere with their quantum fields. Our missile guidance systems use random number generators that their psychic abilities can't predict, Martinez said. Are you saying our primitive technology is actually an advantage? In a way, yes. They've become so dependent on their perfect systems that they've forgotten how to deal with imperfect ones. When we fire a missile at them, they try to predict where it's going using psychic abilities. But our guidance systems are designed to change course randomly. So their predictions are wrong, Martinez explained. Sullivan felt a spark of hope. What else have you found? Their energy shields are designed to stop directed energy weapons and sophisticated projectiles. But they're not very effective against simple kinetic weapons. A piece of metal moving at high speed can punch right through their shields, Martinez said. So we need to fight them with simple weapons instead of advanced ones? Exactly. Railguns, kinetic missiles, even old-fashioned bullets might be more effective than our best laser weapons. Their technology is so advanced that it can't deal with primitive attacks, Martinez said. Sullivan turned to Colonel Parker. Get me a meeting with all ship commanders. We need to completely change our battle plans. While the military leaders met, Dr. Nicole Adams was working in a secure laboratory deep underground. She had been studying the genetic samples that Dr. Carter had sent from the UES Valiant. What she had discovered might be the key to stopping the Zephyrians. Dr. Adams, you asked to see me, said General Frank Wilson, the head of Earth's Biological Defense Program. Yes, General. I've made a breakthrough in understanding Zephyrian genetics. They've been modifying themselves for thousands of years. But they made a critical mistake, Adams said. She led Wilson to a computer terminal that showed complex genetic diagrams. Look at this. They've eliminated most of the random elements in their DNA. Everything is perfectly organized and controlled. That sounds like a good thing, Wilson said. It would be, except that perfect organization makes them vulnerable. All of their genetic modifications are connected to each other. If we can disrupt one part of their genetic system, the whole thing might collapse, Adams explained. Wilson looked at the data on the screen. How would we disrupt their genetics? With a virus. Not a normal virus, but one designed specifically to target their modified genes. It would cause their genetic modifications to unravel, forcing them to revert to something closer to normal human genetics, Adams said. Would that kill them? Probably not, but it would eliminate most of their enhanced abilities. No more psychic powers, no more extended lifespans, no more perfect physical coordination. They would become more like us, Adams said. Wilson thought about this. How do we deliver this virus to them? That's the problem. We need to get it into their air supply or water system. It would have to be deployed on their ships or their bases, Adams said. I'll talk to Admiral Sullivan about this. Maybe we can find a way to get close enough to use your weapon, Wilson said. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Ben Parker was leading a secret mission to the outer edges of the solar system. His ship, the UES Defender, was equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humans had ever built. His mission was to find and observe the main Zephyrian base. Colonel, we're approaching the coordinates where intelligence thinks their main base is located, said his pilot, Lieutenant Carl. Johnson, take us in slowly. Full stealth mode, Parker ordered. The UES Defender crept forward through the darkness of space. They were beyond Pluto now, in the cold emptiness where few human ships had ever traveled. Suddenly, their sensors detected something huge ahead of them. "My God," whispered Johnson. In front of them was a massive structure, bigger than any human city. It was built inside a large asteroid, but it had been completely hollowed out and filled with gleaming metal buildings and energy conduits. Hundreds of ships moved in and out of the structure like insects around a hive. "How many people could live in something that size?" Johnson asked. "Millions," Parker replied. "Get us closer, but stay hidden. We need to map this base and find out what they're planning." As they moved closer, they could see more details of the Zephyrian base. There were massive weapons platforms, ship construction facilities, and what looked like laboratories. But what caught Parker's attention were the large chambers filled with some kind of green liquid. "What do you think those chambers are for?" Johnson asked. "I don't know, but I don't like the look of them." "Record everything we see. Command needs to know about this," Parker said. They spent 3 hours observing the base, documenting everything they could see. When they finally left, Parker knew that humanity was facing an enemy that was far more prepared for war than anyone had imagined. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan was meeting with the leaders of all human colonies. Representatives from Mars, Europa, Titan, and the asteroid mining stations had gathered to discuss the crisis. "We need to coordinate our defenses," Sullivan said. "The Zephyrians aren't just targeting Earth. They want to eliminate all human presence in the galaxy." "What about evacuation?" asked Governor Helen Martinez from Mars Colony. "Should we start moving civilians to safer locations?" "There are no safer locations," Sullivan replied. "This is a war for the survival of our species. We either win or we all die." The room fell silent as everyone understood the gravity of the situation. Finally, Commander Steve Rogers from the asteroid mining station spoke up. "Admiral, my people know how to survive in harsh conditions. We can turn the asteroids into hidden bases, places where humans can continue to live even if Earth falls." "That's a good backup plan, but I don't intend to let Earth fall," Sullivan said firmly. "We're going to fight with everything we have." Over the next few days, humanity prepared for war. Ships were equipped with simple kinetic weapons instead of advanced energy systems. Dr. Adams worked around the clock to perfect her genetic virus. Secret bases were established on remote asteroids and moons. The Zephyrians had given humanity an ultimatum, and humanity's answer was clear: they would not surrender their homeworld to their ancient enemies. They would fight, and they would find a way to win, no matter what the cost. The attack came without warning. Colonel Steve Rogers was having breakfast in the command center of Mars Base Alpha when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his coffee and ran to the main control room, where his officers were staring at. "Their screen's in shock. Report," Rogers shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Sir, we have 37 enemy ships approaching from the outer system. They'll be here in 20 minutes, said Lieutenant Ellen Davis. His communications officer, Rogers, looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were moving faster than anything humans had ever built. Their formation was perfect, like a deadly flower spreading across space toward Mars. "Old defense stations, prepare for battle. Launch all fighters and ready the orbital platforms," Rogers ordered. Mars Base Alpha had been built inside a mountain to protect it from asteroid impacts and solar radiation. Now those same thick walls would have to protect it from alien weapons. Rogers had 8,000 people under his command, including families and children. He could not let them down. "Sir, incoming message from the lead enemy ship," Davis reported. "Put it on the main screen," Rogers said. The face of Thane Arcturus appeared on the screen. He was taller than Kalen Voss, and his skin was even paler. His eyes were completely black, without any white showing. When he spoke, his voice was cold and mechanical. "Human Commander, I am War Commander Thane Arcturus. You have one chance to surrender. Leave this world immediately, or we will destroy." "You all," Arcturus said, "this is our home now." "We're not going anywhere," Rogers replied. "Then you have chosen death." "So be it," Arcturus said, and the transmission ended. The first Zephyrian weapons hit Mars Base Alpha 5 minutes later. Beams of purple energy struck the mountain, turning solid rock into vapor. The base shook like an earthquake was happening, but the thick walls held. "Return fire! All weapons!" Rogers shouted. The human defense platforms opened fire with railguns and kinetic missiles. To Rogers' amazement, several Zephyrian ships exploded when the simple metal projectiles hit them. Dr. Martinez had been right about their shields being weak against primitive weapons. "Sir, we're actually hitting them," Davis said with excitement. "Don't get too happy yet." "We're still outnumbered 4-1, Rogers warned. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Zephyrians were shocked that their perfect weapons were not working as expected. Their energy beams could destroy buildings, but the humans kept fighting from underground bunkers and hidden positions. Meanwhile, human kinetic weapons were punching through alien shields and damaging their ships, but the Zephyrians learned quickly. They began using different tactics, focusing their attacks on the human weapon platforms instead of the base itself. One by one, the orbital defense stations were destroyed. "Sir, we're down to 30% of our defensive firepower," reported Major Carl Johnson from the Weapons Control Center. "Switch to guerrilla tactics. Use the mining tunnels to move our weapons around. Make them think we're shooting from everywhere." At once, Rogers ordered, the humans began using the planet's own geography against the invaders. They moved their weapons through the vast network of mining tunnels that covered Mars. Every time the Zephyrians targeted a gun position, the humans would already be gone, setting up somewhere else. While the battle for Mars continued, Captain Maria Gonzalez was leading a desperate fight in the space around Jupiter. Her ship, the UES Defiance, was part of a small fleet trying to stop a larger Zephyrian force from reaching Earth. "Captain, we're picking up 43 enemy ships coming around Jupiter's far side," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Peter Lang. "How many ships do we have?" Gonzalez asked. 17, Captain, but 6 of them are damaged from the last battle," Lang replied. Gonzalez looked at the tactical display. "The odds were terrible, but they had to try. If this Zephyrian fleet reached Earth, millions of people would die. All ships, this is Captain Gonzalez. We're going to hit them hard and fast, then retreat before they can organize. Use random attack patterns and keep changing direction," she ordered. The human fleet charged toward the enemy ships. Gonzalez had learned from the battle reports from Mars. The Zephyrians expected humans to fight logically, with organized formations and predictable tactics. Instead, the humans attacked like a swarm of angry bees, each ship doing something different. The used Defiance fired a spread of kinetic missiles, then immediately turned and fired in a completely different direction. The Zephyrians tried to use their psychic abilities to predict where the missiles would go, but the random guidance systems made their predictions useless. "Direct hit on enemy ship 3. Lang shouted. "Good. Target their command ship next." Gonzalez ordered. The human ships darted between the larger Zephyrian vessels, firing rapidly and then changing course. The aliens tried to surround them, but the humans were too unpredictable. Every time the Zephyrians thought they had a human ship trapped, it would do something unexpected and escape. "Captain, the enemy is breaking off their attack. They're retreating," Lang reported. Gonzalez could hardly believe it. "Are you sure?" "Yes, Captain. They're moving back toward the outer system. We actually beat them." But the victory came at a cost. 7 human ships had been destroyed, and most of the survivors were badly damaged. Gonzalez knew they could not win many more battles like this one on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Dr. Peter Lang was working frantically in his hidden laboratory. The Zephyrians had found and destroyed his main research facility, but he had managed to save samples of Dr. Adams' genetic virus. Now he was trying to find a way to deploy it against the enemy. "Dr. Lang, we need to evacuate." "The Zephyrians are attacking the main colony," said his assistant, Dr. Amy Foster. "Not yet. I'm almost finished with the virus delivery system." "Just give me 10 more minutes," Lang replied. The laboratory shook as explosions rocked the surface above them. The Zephyrians were using their energy weapons to melt through the ice that covered Europa. Soon they would break through to the underground colonies where thousands of humans lived. 5 more minutes, Dr. Lang, that's all we have, Foster said. Lang worked as fast as he could, loading the genetic virus into special containers that could be fired from human weapons. If they could get these containers onto a Zephyrian ship, the virus would spread through their air system and infect the entire crew. Done. Help me carry these to the surface, Lang said. They ran through the tunnels as the base shook around them. When they reached the surface, they found a scene of chaos. Zephyrian ships hovered over the colony, firing down at the human defenders, but the humans were fighting back with everything they had. There! That crashed Zephyrian ship, Foster pointed to an alien vessel that had been brought down by human missiles. Perfect. If we can get the virus into their ship, it might spread to the other vessels when they try to rescue their crew, Lang said. They crawled across the icy surface, dodging energy beams and falling debris. When they reached the crashed ship, Lang carefully placed his virus containers inside the alien vessel. Now we wait and see if it works, he said. Meanwhile, on Earth, ordinary people were joining the fight. Ellen Davis, a school teacher from New York, had organized her neighbors into a resistance group. When Zephyrian ships appeared over the city, the humans were ready. Remember, aim for the glowing parts of their ships. Those are their shield generators, Davis told her group. They were hiding on the rooftops of tall buildings, armed with simple rocket launchers and heavy rifles. The Zephyrians expected to find helpless civilians, but instead they found fighters who refused to give up. Fire! Davis shouted. Rockets and bullets flew toward the alien ships. Most of the shots missed, but some hit their targets. To everyone's amazement, one of the Zephyrian ships actually crashed into a building. It worked. Keep firing, Davis yelled. All across Earth, similar scenes were playing out. Farmers, factory workers, students, and retired soldiers were all fighting the invasion. The Zephyrians had expected to conquer Earth easily, but they were finding that humans would not surrender without a fight. In space, Captain Jake Morrison was still aboard the U.S. Valiant, trying to coordinate the defense of human colonies. His ship had been damaged in several battles, but it was still flying. Captain, we're receiving reports from all fronts. The Zephyrians are taking heavy losses. But so are we, Commander Ryan Brooks reported. What about the genetic virus? Has it had any effect? Morrison asked. We're getting some reports of Zephyrian ships retreating after being infected, but it's hard to confirm. The virus takes time to work, Brooks replied. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the entire solar system. Red dots marked enemy positions. Blue dots marked human forces. There were fewer blue dots than when the war started, but the red dots were also decreasing. We're hurting them more than they expected, Morrison said, but they're still stronger than us. We need something to turn the tide. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven something important. They were not the helpless primitives the Zephyrians thought they were. They were fighters, and they would not give up their home without making their enemies pay a terrible price. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Valiant as it led the largest human fleet ever assembled toward Earth. Behind him flew every ship that humanity could gather. Damaged warships, converted cargo vessels, mining ships equipped with weapons, and even civilian transports carrying fighters. It was not the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, but it was the most determined. Captain, we're detecting the Zephyrian mothership entering Earth orbit, reported Dr. Lisa Carter from her sensor station. Morrison looked at the main screen and felt his heart sink. The Zephyrian mothership was enormous, larger than any human city. It was shaped like a massive crystal, glowing with purple energy that hurt to look at directly. Smaller ships surrounded it like a swarm of deadly insects. How big is that thing? Morrison asked. Preliminary scans suggest it's over 50 kilometers long. Captain, that ship could destroy an entire continent with one shot, Carter replied. Morrison knew this was the moment that would decide the fate of humanity. If they could destroy the mothership, the remaining Zephyrian forces might retreat. If they failed, Earth would be lost forever. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Today we fight for more than our lives. We fight for the right of humanity to exist in this galaxy. Show them what humans can do when we refuse to give up, Morrison said into his communicator. The human fleet charged toward the mothership. The Zephyrians responded immediately, sending hundreds of fighter ships to intercept them. The space around Earth became filled with weapons fire and explosions as the two forces collided. Morrison watched as human ships fought with desperate courage against their technologically superior enemies. The U's Defiance, commanded by Captain Maria Gonzalez, rammed directly into a Zephyrian cruiser, destroying both ships. The mining vessel New Hope, commanded by an old asteroid prospector named Carl Johnson, used its industrial cutting lasers to slice through enemy hull plating. Captain, the genetic virus is working. We're seeing reports of Zephyrian ships losing power as their crews become sick, Carter reported. Morrison could see it happening on the tactical display. Several enemy ships had stopped firing and were drifting helplessly. The virus that Dr. Adams had created was spreading through the Zephyrian fleet, causing their genetic modifications to break down, but the mothership seemed immune to the virus. Its massive hull was sealed, and its crew was protected by advanced life support systems. The giant ship began charging its main weapon, a device that could destroy entire planets. "We have to get aboard that ship and stop them from firing," Morrison said. "Captain, that's suicide." "Their defenses are too strong," Commander Ryan Brooks protested. "Maybe, but it's our only chance. Ready a boarding party. We're going to land on that ship and find a way to stop them," Morrison ordered. The U's Valiant broke away from the main battle and headed directly for the mothership. Zephyrian fighters swarmed around them, but the human ship kept going. Morrison had equipped his vessel with heavy armor and kinetic weapons, making it a flying battering ram. "Brace for impact," Morrison shouted as they crashed through the mothership's outer defenses. The Valiant's hull scraped against the alien crystal structure, sending sparks flying in all directions. Morrison and his boarding party, including Brooks and Carter, put on their spacesuits and prepared to enter the enemy ship. "Remember, our weapons work better than theirs in close combat. Stay together and keep moving," Morrison told his team. They cut through the mothership's hull using plasma torches and entered the alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. The corridors were made of the same crystal material as the outside, and they pulsed with strange energy patterns. The air was thick and hard to breathe, even through their suit filters. "This way to the command center," Carter said. Reading her scanner, they moved through the ship, fighting past Zephyrian guards who seemed confused and disoriented. Morrison realized that the virus was affecting even the crew of the mothership. Their perfect coordination was breaking down as their genetic modifications failed. Finally, they reached the command center. It was a vast chamber filled with floating control surfaces and holographic displays. At the center stood Kalen Voss, but he looked different now. His perfect features were twisted with pain, and his silver hair was falling out in clumps. "Captain Morrison," Voss said, his voice weak and strained, "you have come to witness the end of your species." "The only thing ending here is your war," Morrison replied, raising his weapon. "You do not understand. Even if you stop me, there are others. Our empire spans hundreds of worlds. Eventually, we will return to claim what is ours," Voss said. "Maybe. But not today," Morrison said. He fired his kinetic weapon at the main control console, smashing the delicate crystal structures. Sparks flew as the mothership's systems began to fail. The charging sequence for the planet killer weapon stopped, and emergency alarms began sounding throughout the ship, but Voss was not finished. Despite his deteriorating condition, he still had some of his enhanced abilities. He leaped at Morrison. With inhuman speed, his hands glowing with psychic energy, Morrison barely dodged the attack. Voss was faster and stronger even in his weakened state. But Morrison had something the Zephyrian did not have: years of experience, fighting in unpredictable situations. Instead of trying to match Voss's speed, Morrison used the chaotic environment of the failing command center to his advantage. He knocked over control consoles, created obstacles, and used his knowledge of human combat techniques that the aliens had never encountered. "Your people are dying, Voss. The virus is destroying everything you built," Morrison said as they fought. We can rebuild. We can modify ourselves again. But your people will always be what they are. Primitive animals, Voss replied, his voice filled with hatred. Maybe that's what makes us strong, Morrison said. He managed to get behind Voss and tackled him to the ground. The two struggled for several minutes, but Voss was weakening as the genetic virus continued to work through his system. Finally, Morrison was able to subdue him. It's over, Voss. Your perfect empire is falling apart, Morrison said. Around them, the mothership was dying. Its crystal structure was cracking and its energy systems were failing. Morrison and his team had to get back to their ship before the entire vessel collapsed. They ran through the corridors as the alien ship shook itself apart behind them. They could hear the sound of crystal walls cracking and energy conduits exploding. They reached the UES Valiant just as a massive explosion tore through the mothership's core. Get us out of here? Morrison shouted to his pilot. The Valiant pulled away from the dying mothership just as it exploded. The blast was visible from Earth's surface, a new star that burned briefly in the sky before fading away. With their mothership destroyed and their fleet infected by the genetic virus, the remaining Zephyrians began to retreat. Some tried to surrender, while others fled toward the outer edges of the solar system. Admiral Kate Sullivan, commanding the defense of Earth from her flagship, watched the enemy retreat with satisfaction. All ships pursue the fleeing enemy vessels. Don't let any of them escape to bring reinforcements. But not all the Zephyrians were running. Sub-Commander Vera Kane, one of the few aliens who had not been severely affected by the virus, approached Earth under a flag of truce. She met with human leaders on a neutral space station. We underestimated you, Kane admitted to Morrison and Sullivan. We thought you were simply a failed branch of our evolution. We were wrong. What do you want? Sullivan asked. Peace, a chance for our surviving people to find a new home. Far from Earth, we will not trouble you again, Kane said. Morrison studied the alien woman. She looked more human now, as the genetic modifications gradually broke down. How do we... No, you won't come back in 100 years with a bigger fleet. Because we have learned something important. Evolution is not about perfection. It is about survival and adaptation. Your people survived because they could change and grow in ways we could not. We forgot that lesson, and it nearly destroyed. U.S., Kane said. Dr. Carter, who had been studying the virus's effects, spoke up. We might be able to help stabilize your genetics, stop the breakdown from going too far. But only if you agree to leave this solar system permanently. Kane nodded gratefully. We accept your terms. Earth belongs to humanity now. We will find our own path among the stars. Over the following months, the human scientists worked with the surviving Zephyrians to stabilize their condition. The aliens were given ships and supplies to start new colonies in distant star systems. Far from Earth, Admiral Sullivan established new protocols for deep space exploration, ensuring that humanity would be ready if they ever encountered other hostile species. The victory over the Zephyrians had proven that humans could defend themselves against even the most advanced enemies. Morrison returned to his exploration duties, but he carried with him the knowledge that humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. They had faced their own forgotten past and emerged victorious. They had proven that being human was not a weakness, but a strength that could overcome any challenge. The war was over, but humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning.